Okay, we had a very important assignment last week, and I see that from responses people took it seriously, which I'm very happy about. I'm actually going to speak about it tonight. Bezrat Hashem, I'm going to share about Rabbi Shimon. Find your cave, and I purposely didn't want to lead too much in this, and that was a chinuchi thing, an educational thing, because everybody has to learn how to strategize themselves in Avodas Hashem. Now, that's not because I'm such a great mechanech that I know this. I know this because of the Mesilas Yesharim. Like, the Mesilas Yesharim in Zehirus tells us that we have to always know what the Ratzon Hashem is. We have to always think about where we are in terms of the Ratzon Hashem, and then we have to categorize, strategize. That's the word I want. Strategize, tachbulos, the word he uses. We have to strategize about how to get there. Now, the Mesilas Yesharim doesn't say, go run to your rabbi, ask AI. He says strategize about how to do it. And I think people forget that often, that they have the answers themselves and they can think about things like, okay, of course it's important to read books, and of course it's important to ask your rabbi questions and have a connection with the Rav and women with the Rebbitzin, etc. Super important, obviously. But that doesn't excuse the self work and the self strategy and the self problem solving in Ruchnius. I find them speaking a lot of Lashon Hara. Well, what do you do? How do you deal with that? I find them getting angry a lot. Now, there are times, like the Gemara in Brachas tells us, Ein chovush ma'atir es atzmo beis asurim. The bound person cannot get out of the jail by himself. And there are problems which are like that. And of course, or there are people who have more wisdom, more experience, objective view, obviously, and therefore we turn to friends, mentors, Rabbeim, of course. But that doesn't mean you can't strategize yourself. It's something like this, is someone thinking about, like, what's my cave? Okay, so that was why think about things. Think about things. Our questions should be intelligent questions, not questions out of, well, I didn't think about it. I don't have call to think about it. I have ability to think about it. I can't be bothered. I'll just get my rabbi to do it. And that's very, very important. That's without saying something Revolba mentioned once, that they're less gedolim. He said this maybe 15, 20 years ago. And that's, if it's true, then it's for sure it's true now. It used to be a person in Yerushalayim you go to Rav Shlomo Zalman, you go to Rav Elyashiv, you go to Revolba, you go to Moshe Shapiro. These are people who were semi-available, if you will. Today, the tzibur is getting bigger, and we've lost many, many great men. So there are less people to talk to. So I do feel that today is a generation which is more self-reliant in a certain way, for better or for worse. That doesn't mean there are many great Rabbeim out there, and they are there. There are gedolim, but it is less. Imam Omar, it is less. Revolba was already saying that back then. It used to be in Europe. You could go to almost any town. You had someone who knew Shas and was responsible, and etc. So don't give up on the generation, but yes, be realistic. And that is what I think an objective view of what's going on. That there are less people of that caliber, that certainly they're available. There, many good people of a good caliber. But anyway, do need to develop your own thinking about things. So let's just talk. I was fascinated by this. One of the Chaverim said their car could be a cave for them. I love that. I love that. I love that. I would not have came up with that one. Right. Very nice. That's the thinking. Other things, I just give ideas of how to put the cave idea into our lives. Obviously, no devices, limitation of device, not bringing your device. You have a chavrusa for an hour. The natural intuition, that natural way is to bring your device. Maybe don't, right? You'll survive 10 minutes to get to your chavrusa, 10 minutes to get back. You give your wife clear directions about it. The world is not going to change in that hour and 20 minutes. Obviously, if there's something, okay, but so often it's not like that. You can tell people not to bother you a certain period of time in a nice way. Say to your wife, your children, Abba's learning now. That's a good chinuch, by the way. We're so touchy-feely today. We're like, oh, but maybe it's going to be offensive. It doesn't have to be. It's offensive if you say it in a nasty way. You're bothering me, can't you see I'm learning? That's offensive. You say, hi, honey, hi, children, Abba, it's really important that Abba learns now. And we know how important Abba's learning is. Important, honey. Much we've spoken about this. So it's important for me not to get interrupted with this hour. That is good chinuch. That's good chinuch, and it's good shalom bayis ultimately. The people not that that's the way that Klal Yisrael was built. Imagine if Moshe Feinstein, every time his wife was a little nervous about something, she was running into ask him a question. Would have been good for the Jews. We won't have Igros Moshe. Set an alarm. I'm a big fan of this. Only problem is you have to hold your phone to do it usually. But if you have another phone, if you have one of those watches, I don't have a watch alarm, but maybe I should get one. But if you have an alarm, set an alarm. It's a very, very good psychologically. It's very good. I'm an hour. I'm away, and I'm not looking at the clock because I know the alarm is going to alarm me in an hour, and it will. You don't have to worry about the technology. God forbid, maybe you're not going to get alarmed. You're not on a bus. You're not going to end up in Jenin or in the hostel in Harlem. It's okay. It's okay. You'll be all right. And I think it's a great. I often do it for 5 minutes, for 3 minutes sometimes. If I want to think about something, it's a short seder. We've spoken about this before. But what's the cave? That hour becomes like a cave. Like I'm away from the world for this hour, right? What's not a cave? When you're parrots, when it's all open, right? Here's an hour. I'm checking the news, learning, getting the phone call, learning, checking my status, learning, checking the stock. No, that's not a cave. The Torah, the Seder, the Chavrusa can be a cave, right? It's just the two of us working in Dvar Hashem, etc. To be in a quiet place, it could be. That's more an obvious picture of a cave. I had that recently because my house, I think I've shared before, I moved about 7 months ago. I used to have 3 floors in Yerushalayim. Now I have one. Baruch Hashem, still in a fine place, but it used to be like going upstairs is really away from everything. Now everything is kind of closer. So my children, God bless them, are over. It's a little bit different to find a quiet place, but sometimes means when I would have learned at home now, I'll go out to learn, but that's it. Don't interrupt it all. Like make a thing like this. By the way, I'm talking in the context of tefillah, of learning. For sure, it's true in davening also. Our davening can be a cave. Am I checking my phone, taking a message, talking to the gabbai, setting up the kiddush, or am I davening for a good 45 minutes? That's also that's the point of the cave. And that's one of the things from Shimon. Sham Kanisa, we're Erev the holy day right now. Sham Kanisa Hodcha Hadarecha Moshev Tov Yashavta. The Moshev Tov Yashavta Bein Tzurim Amarata Sham Kanisa Hodcha Hadarecha. Sham there in the cave. Shim was Kona his Hod and his Hadar. Okay, so I want to move on from Miatzicha just because we got to keep moving. There's so many. I was just looking over the list. There's so many things to talk about over the summer of Kinyanei HaTorah. We're not letting be kids. We're not trying to get through, but it's good to get things. So we dealt with Miatzicha a little bit. I want to just share one more line, which I'm not sure I shared before, from the Maral. The Maral's lashon is Dibur Mevatel Pu'ulas Haseichel Berech. It's a language I love. Dibur Mevatel Pu'ulas Haseichel. So often, speaking is Mevatel Pu'ulas Haseichel. You see someone, I had recently, someone asked me a question, and I want to think about it. He wouldn't stop talking. You asked me a question, I got the question. Let me think about your question. He wouldn't stop talking. So there's a very obvious example. I want to get into the seichel. I'm taking your question. The dibur is mevatel, but I don't think that's what the Maral meant. That was a very clear. His dibur is mevatel my seichel. But I think the Maral means our own dibur sometimes. Miatzicha, to be called the Torah, stop talking. Think about things a little bit. I think they said. I heard when I was in high school already. Had brisker-oriented Rabbeim. People tell me they're Salvachik. So they used to say things from Reb Chaim. So they said the difference between Reb Chaim is they were Chacham, Reb Chaim Salvachik. So others would think for an hour and speak for 23, and Reb Chaim would think for 23 and speak for an hour. I don't think I ever heard that since then, since high school. But let's just say that Reb Chaim Salvachik, right? Now, let's just assume that's true for a second. The fact I never heard it again, I wonder, but I hear it, right? Means anybody who knows how yeshiva learning goes, how Reb Chaim is held in the highest regard, and his Torah is in a whole different stratosphere and place. It wasn't just another way to answer something. It was a whole thing. So he thought a long time, and then you speak. Dibur so often thinking, but you have to feel that. sometimes you need to speak to get it clearly. Sometimes you need to speak to express it clearly. But sometimes when you're talking, you're not letting the thinking go on. There's a way to speak, by the way, which is just helping the thinking. We're not talking about that D word. But there's another D word, just like chattering and going on and on and on. And wait, sit on the problem, reflect on the issue, let your brain work, let your brain turn over a little bit. Don't be rushed, and you get somewhere. Okay, we want to get to next is Miyad Tanug. That's what I want to talk about next. What's the idea of Miyad Tanug? Which means a lessening of pleasure, right? There's a lot of pleasures to be had in the world. And one of the Kinyanei HaTorah, one of the Miyutim, is Miyut, right? So we touched a little bit on Miyut Shena, we touched on Miyut Sicha. Now we will touch Bezrat Hashem um, on another one, but here I want to talk about Miyut Ta'anug. So what's the idea of Miyut Ta'anug? So again, you could understand it in a functional utilitarian way, that if you spend too long eating, so it's taking away time from learning. Imagine someone who just eats for 15 minutes and goes back to Seder. Suppose someone eats for an hour and then goes back to Seder. That was 45 minutes. 45 minutes. He could have been learning, and instead it went to the Tanakh. Okay, that's perhaps I don't remember seeing anybody learn that way. I'm just pointing out that might be a way to learn it. But as we've always said, as the introduction we gave 2 weeks ago, that in the Kinyanei HaTorah, the two very general ways to learn them is is like that. They're functional utilitarian, or they express like a lifestyle, a way, a shaykhus to Torah. There's a shaykh to Torah way to live, and there's a less shaykh to way to Torah to live. The way to be kona the Torah is by going into the Torah's mind space, by going into Torah's reshut, by going into the Torah's life, and that's how the Maharal learns it out. Listen to this. Tanug is hu gufani hefach hachachma. And also also mashma that a miyat is okay, which maybe we'll get to, but it's gufani. Taiva, tanug, right? Eating lots of ice cream, lots of Doritos. I'm thinking all the things I like, right? Lots of ice cream, lots of hamburgers, lots of Coca-Cola, right? Lots of calories, lots of greasy food, right? Going into tanug a lot is going into the body. Well, guess what? The Torah is the opposite of that. It's chachma, right? Chachma is not bodily. It's a very simple thing. That's a nice equation. So therefore, if you want shaykhus to Torah, if you want to be kona the Torah, you have to go in the mahalchei chachma, not the mahalchei taiva. Okay, Tanu. I feel so happy to be dealing with this in our generation, because anybody who opens his eyes in Israel, but certainly in America, and certainly in many places, very strongly, is the Riboy Gashmis is out of control, and everybody knows it. It's I just say it honestly, although you read the same magazine which is writing an article about the Riboy Gashmis, but they're putting in tons of ads for the most expensive things in the world. On page 24 is the next complaint about how much Gashmis there is at weddings. Then on page 66 is a $20,000 ring and a $50,000 Pesach vacation, and a men's watch that's who knows what. I got my Casio here. I bought it for 280, 300 shekels 5 years ago. It's very good. It's a beautiful watch. I had a nice wedding watch. It got broken, but I don't know, maybe I'll have an expensive watch again sometime. I don't know. I had a Shabbos watch for $50 recently. I gave it away. It wasn't up to Shabbos. It kept scratching. I said it's not getting a little corroded. I gave it away to somebody. It was Mafkir Yeshiva, but so good, right? But that's the problem. There's so much meat. That's all. Again, I'm not saying Tanug and Gashmi is the same, but in that family. And here's the difficulty. The difficulty is so many people are being marba in Gashmis. And I think this generation says, again, I'm not talking about any particular place, but many places in Klal Yisrael, let's say like that, say you can have it all. I think that's kind of the attitude. You can have your Gashmis and have your Ruchnias, and you can have it all. You can have the beautiful, off the charts, crazy level, Shalom Zacher Yeah, I read about these things. I don't even know what's true and what's false, but like it's shocking to me. You're talking about people like catering Shalom Zachars with. I don't mean a person needs a little bit of help with the Shalom Zachar, but it's not a theme-based Shalom Zachar. Like really, you're basing the theme for the Shalom Zachar. What do you mean? The theme is a Jewish kid came into the world. Is not that's the theme? No. What's the theme of the bris? Baseball? What's the theme? Disney? No, what's the theme? A Yiddish kinder, neshama came into the world, got his foreskin cut, and Baruch Hashem, like it has to be mechubad, yeah, a theme. Where did that come from? And then you have to have like the tablescape. It took me a while to learn this word. The word, your tablescape. Then you have the meat board and the fish board and the cheese board and the other board and then the another, then and we're talking about and let's not I don't want to don't get me started. We're talking about the liquor, and again in certain circles it's not so there. Baruch Hashem, other circles it's very very out there, and then it's like oh that's how it is, and then and then and then Erev Shabbos you got Tomel. I mentioned before. I think my wife tells me that some of the women complain to her. The husbands aren't hungry on Shabbos night because they had Tomel. They're not hungry on Shabbos day because they were at a big kiddush. Hopefully they didn't drink too much. And Shabbos showed us anyway who's hungry. So why is a woman cooking for Shabbos? So what is that a good feeling? Is that a good place for Klal Yisrael to be? Everybody's like going into shtupt. Everybody's shtupt on Shabbos. So the town is so big. Rabbi Lopiansky Shlita wrote that if we're eating Shabbos food totally on Thursday night, so what's for Shabbos? Which is a good ha'ara. It's an interesting ha'ara. That's how he said it. I don't know if he wrote that even in Ben Torah for Life, or if I heard it from, but he definitely heard that idea. So it's a tough stuff. Now let's go further. So we're in a world which is mar betanug, and it's also difficult because let's say on Shabbos you're supposed to have oneg. Karat Shabbos oneg. Shabbos is every time of oneg, and the Chavetz Chaim I saw brought down in the Sefer from a Talmud of the Chafetz Chaim that the Chafetz Chaim used to say that if you see something on Shabbos you like it, it's a bittul of mitzvahs oneg, not to eat it. So it's tough. It's tough because there's so much. It's so around. It's so available. There's so many brands, so much good food. You walk into. I should say also just not just the way we're consuming these, but the amount of availability. In Israel, it used to be what was available. They had cornflakes. Do you know that my Israeli sister-in-law calls Cheerios cornflakes? I think it's interesting. Why? Because that was it. Yeah, cornflakes. That was all there was. There was cornflakes. So in her mind, cornflakes is like the Shane Kolo for cereal. This is the truth. I could make this stuff up. Yep. So in Maisa, we're in a very, very Megushin world today. The amount that's available, the amount that's there, the amount of sugim, the amount of yogurts you can get, the 3%, 1.5%, 1.7%, 2%, 8%, with flavor, without flavor. It's incredible. And it's out there. And Shabbos is a mitzvah. So it's hard to get our head around. Wait. But you have to be mitzvah for Torah. This is a different mahalach. This is not the mahalach HaTorah. Now, I want to point out, there's another point about all the Gashmis, which is, of course, is Olam Haba. Like, what do we focus on? We're on this world, the next world. I just want to mention, as I was writing this morning and thinking about what I was going to speak about in the Vaad, I remembered a fellow by Reb Tzvi, a European Talmud, that he said to me when he used to go out with girls, he would say to her, we got to focus either Olam Haza or Olam Haba. You can't have both. And he obviously was only going to marry a girl who answered Olam Haba. But it was like this. I think you learned in Gates said, but this European from this area, English. I think he was Swiss, but I don't remember his name. It wasn't an yeshiva for a long time, but by Reb Tzvi, but it was striking. This is what he's talking to his Kal about. Are we for Olam Haba or Olam Hazeh? Where are we? But that's not the point. That's another thing. Olam Hazeh, Olam Haba. Here's about Torah, right? And as we've established, our Torah is important. Your Torah, my Torah. We can't go into Shavuos and we don't think our Torah is important. And now we know one of the Kinyanei Torah is to get into that. We have to get into this mindset of Chachma and not Gashmis. Gashmis, I can't have it all. I can't. You can't have it all. That doesn't mean, let's not confuse that with you. It doesn't mean you can't have nothing, right? I'm not saying, God forbid, that people who are very Gashmistic, including myself, have no Torah. That would be out of my pay grade to say things like that. And I don't believe it's true. But it does affect. That's the point. That's what we see from the Maharal. Mia Tanug, Tanug is gufani, hepech hachachma. That's the hepech hachachma. So when a person is kol kulo tomeh, kol kulo gashmis, kol kulo, showing off his food on showing off his food, what he's eating on his statuses and on his Facebook things like that. When it's such a when you're a foodie, when such a thing, it is no it is pogay in your chachma. It's a different mahalach. You're not thinking about Tosfos now. You're not thinking about Daf Yomi now. You're not thinking about Amud Yomi now. You're not thinking about your Nach Seder. You think about the food, and it's deeper than that also. It's not the Torah way. Torah's way is seichel. It's difficult. It's difficult. So I was struggling to think about, what Kabbalah do we make? What Kabbalah do we make? So I want to try something which isn't really, honestly, Mia Tanug, but I think it's relating to Tanug in a more Torah-dic way. That's what I want to accomplish. And I'm excited to try this myself. And here's what I want to try. Okay. And again, I'm saying Lahadya, it's a little bit off center from Mia Tanug, but it is a way to relate to Tanug in a way which is not Hepech Torah. I think that's what we're working on. Too much time. What's the point of Mia Tanug? Because too much Tanug is taking us away from Chachmas Torah. So I think if we can do Tanug right, it will less take us away from Torah. Good. So that's what it's a positive. I want to give a positive Kabbalah. And here's what it is. I want everybody to try for 3 minutes a day. You can use your aforementioned watch or aforementioned alarm. I'm going to try also to eat and enjoy and to feel the Tovas Hashem. Tamuriki Tov Hashem, to feel HaKadosh Baruch Hu's goodness. Right? Tanug, Taiva, is separate from Hashem when it's separate from Hashem. I don't see in this woman, I don't see in this candy bar, Abe the Eibishter, right? I don't see it. To me, it's just the thing on its own. That thing that I want, that my Taiva wants. The more I bring the Rebbeinu Shalom in, the less that's what's happening, the less it's a Hepech Torah, right? But it's hard to eat that way. So I think like for 3 minutes, at first I said 5, I think that might be a little too long, but for 3 minutes to stay focused, eat, you can eat slowly, enjoy, but to feel this is the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu here. Who made such a delicious world? Who made such a beautiful world? Who gave me this food? Who gave me this agozi bar? Who gave me this potato chip? Who gave me these French fries? Hashem. Hashem wants me to be happy. Bara ba'olamo lo chiser ba'olamo davar u'bara ilanas tovas u'brias tovas lahenos ben b'nei adam. Right now, I know this is not precious, right? But this is definitely. Like they've spoken about this. Rabbi Miller spoke about this a lot. Tel spoke about this. We have Torah Makaris in this. Someone who's too much of a parish to do this avoda is welcome not to take place. But I think for us, it's a very good way to get around the sugi of Tanug, to deal with the sugi of Tanug in a good way. Okay? It could be if I would have thought something straighter towards Mia Tanug. Look, I could just say everybody should Tinus Rivet or something like that. I don't want to say that. I thought this is better. Okay? So I'm looking forward to doing it. I think it's a cool thing to do. 3 minutes a day to train ourselves. I know for me, I eat fast a lot of times, or that I get stuck. You get lost, like Noah said once. You get lost in the bag of peanuts. No. For 3 minutes a day, it's not so long. A person can eat slowly and feel and think with consciousness, presence, consciousness. Kadosh Baruch Hu loves me. He gave me this delicious food, and I can taste in this food. Tamuri taste. I feel the goodness of Kadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, so hopefully, once we understand better what Tanug is, and we know how to misanig in a way which isn't Hepech Torah, then we'll know how to be Mayit also. We'll come back to that. But either way, I think it's a good avodah on its own. Okay? Everybody's down. Eric, you down? Aaron, good. 3 minutes a day. Still get started today. I'm looking forward to I'm going to be eating in about 45 minutes. Those are the Shem for dinner. I'm going to start today's Sunday. Maybe we should try that. We have 6 days to try. Shabbos for sure. Shabbos for sure we should try to eat like that way. But even the other days, and to see what we find in that. Maybe I'll find, no, I just, I taste something tasty. I'm lost or not. But it's time to learn how to do this a little bit. You got to slow down. It's good that we're in Avad. We can do it together. And Bezrat Hashem will take us to good places. Okay, that's Lacha Rabbah. All the best, everybody.